and sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jame Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice. Oh, let us all, Jame Lakey, get out of bed. Jame Lakey, raise your voice. Jame Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jame Lakey. Jame Lakey.
Well, top of the morning to you. Happy Monday, America. Good to have you here as people gather around for the fireside chat that is about to happen. Jame Lakey is my name. Pleasure, pleased, and yes, a little bit thrilled to be here with you. I promise you I'm thrilled to be here. Really, it's Monday, the glorious day the Lord has made, the 19th day of May, year of our Lord 2025. Where did May go? I was telling producer Chad in the pre-show gathering that my April got away from me. I totally missed April. I think I was traveling all but one weekend of April, and several days into the week. I was traveling every week in April, and because of that, I've lost track of time. And now I wake up, it's the 19th day of May, year of our Lord 2025, and I say, wow, it seems like it should be like April the 19th, because I missed the month of April because I was very, very, very busy. But anyway, good to have you here on the program this morning. Thanks for tuning in. It's Lakey Unleashed. If you're new to the show, new to the concept, whether you're watching the live stream right now at 8:03, almost 8:04 Mountain Time, that'd be 10:03, 10:04 Eastern Time. Do the math wherever you're at. Wherever you're listening, if you're listening live, watching the television, watching the show on the screens, or if you're listening on the podcast later in the day on Apple Podcast, iHeartMedia, Spotify, wherever you listen to the program, we are glad to have you, privileged to have you. And yes, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for liking, sharing, and all the things that you do to make this show continue. We appreciate you. All right, we'll get to the news of the day here in just a second. Also, this morning, I'm going to talk about our casino gala that happened on Saturday night. I'm still recovering, if you maybe can't tell. It was a fantastic night. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I think maybe there's a photo maybe lurking around in the tabloids of producer Chad and I on the red carpet. We smiled and gave a thumbs up. So we'll get to all of that coming up in due course of the show. Big story. Oh, also, Dr. Carol Lieberman, America's psychiatrist, is going to be with us at 45 minutes after the hour. So look at the clock right now. That's about 41 minutes from right now. Dr. Carol Lieberman will be on the program, and we'll talk a little bit about the narcissism of James Comey and people like him, but also as a medical doctor, she can help also dive into this diagnosis that happened over the weekend. That was announced over the weekend in which Joe Biden was diagnosed, and they announced he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. And the phrase is in the statement, with metastasis into the bone. President Trump, I'm looking at his truth that came out yesterday. He said, Melania and I are saddened to hear about Joe Biden's recent medical diagnosis. We extend our warmest and best wishes to Jill and the family, and we wish Joe a fast and successful recovery. Now, I did not lurk in the bowels of the internet. I did not go looking for what people were saying as far as the nasty stuff. But I saw a lot of great conservative commentators just come out immediately and just wish, like President Trump did, Joe Biden a speedy and fast recovery. You're in our prayers. Saw some talk show hosts do the same thing. And I don't mean to play the obvious game in this time, but I think that shows the difference between them and us, and they're not like us. We're not like them. Because if Donald Trump so much gets a hangnail, they want to perp walk him, they want to hang him, they want to lynch him, they do all sorts of say all sorts of nasty stuff. And the American left, as it is, gets very, very violent with no condemnation from their political leaders. As a matter of fact, Kamala Harris bails them out of jail when they get violent. Bernie says, oh, you're just taking on the oligarch. Jasmine Crockett says it's well-deserved. The American left is a lost and sick group of people to this day. And I saw nothing but well wishes. Again, I know you can go find some exceptions out there in the bowels of the internet and find people that maybe were not saying evil things about Joe Biden getting cancer. But let me tell you, if you're thinking nasty things about Joe Biden getting cancer, you really need to get your heart right. The diagnosis and It is not good, and it's nobody wants that with diagnosis on anybody if you're a reasonable human being. Now, the question is, now there are some conspiracy theories I think are quite interesting. This is the story of the morning. It's on all the cable channels. It was at cable channels all weekend that Biden has announced he has cancer, and his team has announced he has an aggressive form of prostate cancer. Now, there's folks out there speculating and percolating conspiracy theories that maybe he knew about this before, and they're just now announcing it. Now, he said he went to the doctor on Friday, and they gave him the diagnosis. So I'm going to take it at face value. But the interesting part of the conspiracy theory is that this is the very week that the Jake Tapper book is going to hit the street. It's the Jake Tapper book is available for sale. And so there's speculation, and I'm not saying I agree with it. I find it quite interesting because there's always a shroud of secrecy and underlying motives when it comes to Washington, D.C. But Biden announces his cancer diagnosis, and the shroud of secrecy was last week. Remember, he showed up on The View. And he got with those old cackling battle axes, and the left was not happy that he reappeared, trying to rehash and reimagine himself and kind of come out on the offensive when everybody that has been somehow attached to his former administration, political foes, political opponents, political friends, political allies, were all kind of the last couple of weeks piling on and saying Joe Biden was unfit, Joe Biden was incompetent. And so that's been going on. That's been the drumbeat. That's been the narrative. And the speculation amongst some, again, not saying I disagree, just throwing it out there for your participation and your pontification, is that maybe Joe Biden tried to rehash his image the week before all the Jake Tapper books. They all come out this week, and the big one comes out this week, and there's others that are following suit. And he did not get a warm reception by the public when it came to his appearance on The View. And then on Friday, the audio tapes, was it Thursday or Friday? Friday, they put out the audio tapes of President Biden and Special Counsel Hur, and he sounded like a meandering, fumbling old fool. So last week was just a 1-2 punch for Biden, right? The Democrats wished he would not go on The View. The audio tapes were released in which he couldn't remember what year it was. He was off by a decade on when his son Beau died. I mean, also, if you heard any of these audio tapes that came out on Friday, that was quite revelatory. And so this conspiracy theorist out there said the rehab tour did not work last week, was not received well. More ammo came out with her audio tape interviews, and the Jake Tapper book's dropping publicly this week. And so maybe now is the time to kind of spin the narrative and stop the talk about Joe Biden's cognitive decline and bring him out there as a sympathetic figure. In other words, there's some people that speculate that they've known about this diagnosis perhaps for a period of time, but they kept it private and secret in order to put it out there at the very best possible time to stem the coverage of Joe Biden's cognitive decline. What say you? What do you think? Again, I wish him well. I'm not suggesting that the conspiracy theories are accurate. I am suggesting that this is probably a better time for him to a better time for him to release it. There's speculation out there. All right, let me read what's coming on the screen here. Rich is commenting on the Facebook. I feel for the man as a human being. I do not wish it on anyone. I just don't trust anything that comes out of the Biden camp and the Democrats. And I think that's where the seed of conspiracy theory is. And Dr. Carol Lieberman will join us at 45, and she will jump into the conversation because there is just speculation that this is a very good timing for the Biden administration, because now, instead of talking about the Jake Tapper book and giving the headlines of all the stuff that's coming out of the Jake Tapper book, and also this morning, rather than having a rehash of playing the audio of the Hur audio tapes where Joe Biden was questioned, and that's when Hur decided he would not file charges or suggest an indictment, because he says there's no way anybody would see him as a doddering old fool that is just drooling out of his mouth. And so there is great timing on the Biden camp. Again, probably all coincidence, but I think Rich nails it. There's where the heart of conspiracy is, that you can't trust them. And when you can't trust them, you wonder what the real story is. As Paul Harvey said, what is the rest of the story? Rich also says, good morning from Missouri. Great to start the week with you and your team. Well, I'm not sure about the team, but I'm sure it's probably good to start with me. I mean, start with, Delilah, producer, Chad, all of these people. Let's see, master of the microphone. Good morning, says Obnoxious Scott. Well, good morning to you. By the way, if you're out there watching the program on any of the streams live, go ahead and comment if you're on the Facebook feed, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. Let's see, we got facebook.com/The Media Equalizer, facebook.com/Red Wave America. If you're watching on the tweeter this morning, the tweeter numbers are growing really quickly. I'm just kind of watching them up and up and up. I'd love to have you join us there. Comment. We see it right here in the studio, and you can be famous like Rich and Scott and have your comment blasted out there for everybody to see. So I just throw that question out there, though. Have you heard the conspiracy theories on the Biden thing? Again, on a human level, like Rich, I don't wish this on a man. I say my prayers for the Biden family. It's cancer is a diagnosis that all of us have been touched by through family or maybe yourself out there. It's a nasty, nasty, nasty disease. But we wish Joe Biden the best. But there are some theories out there that this is very good timing on the diagnosis. Very, very good timing. Hey, I see Tracy Walker jump in there. Tracy Walker. Tracy Walker was also, he followed me out the door of the iHeart Kingdom. He was the big sales boss, and they kicked both of us to the curb. Maybe because we're both conservatives out there. I don't speculate. No, we both got shown the iHeart love. That's what we did. We both got shown the love. He lasted about 2 weeks longer than I did. But Tracy, good to see you, my friend. Good to have you out there. Perusing in the shadows. I always appreciate you. All right, Joe Biden, good timing, right? I think it's very good timing, fantastic timing for old Joe. And again, I'm not saying that he timed it this way, but it is timed very well because, again, the headline was going to be this week. The headline would have been the Her audio tapes. The headline would have also been the Jack Tapper book hitting the shelves this week. And so it's very good timing for Joe. But again, the diagnosis is he's battling an aggressive form of prostate cancer. They've only issued personal written statements from the Biden camp. But the thing that gets me in the Biden camp release is they talk about there's some metastasis into the bone. And again, I'm no doctor. We'll talk to a medical doctor at 8:45 this morning, Mountain Time, 10:45 Eastern Time. We will talk to a medical doctor in just about 30 minutes from now. But the metastasis into the bone does not sound good. I mean, I'm guessing anytime you get the old diagnosis of the cancer, you just don't want to have that metastasize into the bones. By the way, that brings me to another question of the day. Not a question of the day, but a thought that I have running through my stream of consciousness there. Anybody remember the Joe Rogan episode where Joe Rogan had Mel Gibson on the program, and they were talking about the cancer? And Joe said, they were talking about friends they had that were in a very, very advanced cancer stages, and now they're not. And they were talking to Joe Rogan. We got to be careful of what we say here, or the tube that starts with you will ban us again. That's happened several times, but it's quite fascinating. Go back and watch that episode. And as big of a friend of the big pharma as Joe Biden has been, selling and perpetrating and even trying to force people to take the booger cootie virus shot in their arm back during the old booger cootie virus epidemic that we had, I have to say it's going to be interesting to see if Joe seeks out any let's say, non-traditional treatments that are out there, according to Joe Rogan and Mel Gibson, have worked for people. Will Joe pursue something outside of that, or will he rely solely on the big pharma? That's a great question. Go watch that episode. They had a couple of things that they talked about, and both Joe Rogan and Mel Gibson talked about the stuff that they did for the cancer and the things that worked and things that didn't. I'm parsing my words very, very carefully because YouTube has little algorithms going to search in and out and trying to find us, and they're working to find something to nail us on. So we got to be careful what we say there. But yeah, if I were President Biden, and again, wish him very well in this diagnosis, and it's a sad diagnosis, I'm quite sure, and I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. That's a sad diagnosis that we should pray for Joe Biden and his recovery. The same way President Trump showed leadership to do that, we should do that. But I would recommend that Joe go back and watch the Joe Rogan episode with Mel Gibson. That's all I'll say, lest we get in trouble on the YouTube. There's some very interesting things that you might find there. All right, Jim jumps in here. He says, good morning from Fort Collins. CSU students are mostly out for the summer, so traffic's a little better. Maybe they can now fix these farm roads. Listen, if you're talking about Colorado fixing a road, Jim, you need to go back to smoking something, snorting something, because fixing roads in Colorado, it's like opposite of what they ever do. They never fix the road. Now, if there's a bike trail, they may fix that, but they're not going to fix the roads. Jim, you need to get out of your car and stop driving that gas-guzzling vehicle, and you need to walk. That's what they want you to do in Colorado, and that's per the governor. Your road, Jim, is no one's priority, because that road it's kind of like a tortilla chip. You're not really into the tortilla chip as much as it's a delivery mechanism. That road is just a delivery mechanism of that gas guzzling vehicle, and you need to stop driving that thing, Jim. So there's your answer, Jim. Don't hold out hope that they're going to fix the roads in Colorado. It just hasn't happened in all the years I've been here. All right, another story I want to get to. By the way, let me give a question of the day. Give all of you food for fodder as to how to sound off and to jump into the program. You can always comment on anything that we talk about. And again, I mentioned it whether on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, YouTube. If you're watching in real time, you can comment in the sections of the show that you see where comments are allowed. And when you do so, you will be allowed to, that'll pop up in the studio, and producer Chad is in his studio, and he is ready to make you famous and put it right up on the screen here. Here's a story it's a study that's out there that 88% of working adults say they check their email at least once a day. All right, raise your hand out there, unless you're driving. Do you check your email at least once a day? Even on vacation, 88% of Americans say they check their email once a day, even on vacation. 1 in 5 people, though, say they check it at least 20 times a day. Here's some more of the stats about America's email habits, and it's going to bring us to our question of the day. Only checking your email once a day is not very common. 42% said that 3 to 5 times a day. 28% say they check their email 10 to 20 times a day. And 19% check their email more than 20 times a day. Only 8% check it only one time. So most people, 8% say I check it one time and one time only. The rest of us are ranging from 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5 times up to more than 20 times a day. On weekdays, 35% they said they spend less than an hour reading and responding to emails. 30% said they spend about an hour reading and responding to email. 17% say they spend 2 hours, and 18% say they spend up to 5 hours a day on email. Only 1 in 5 people open all of their emails. 21% say they open an email no matter what the subject is. They open it and check it out, even when they think it may be spam. The fourth part of the study that's out there on the email, if your email gets sent to spam, they may never see it. 24% say they never check the spam folder. How often do you check your spam folder? I check mine probably every couple of weeks. I take a perusal. Probably sometimes it stretches longer than that. But I do try to check my spam filter on a regular basis, but I don't always check it regularly enough. But here's your question of the day today on the Lakey Unleashed Streamcast. How many times a day do you check your email? There's a large group of people, 1 in 5 say they check it lots and dozens of times a day. How many times a day do you check your email? 1 in 5 workers say at least 20 times a day. And I would guess, I've never counted, but I would guess I'm probably in that 20 times a day thing. I'm guessing I check it throughout the course of the day. I peruse it. It pops up on my computer screen when my computer's open, and that causes me, and I don't count that, but when I see something pop up on the computer screen as a notification, I then go to the mail program and I'll check the email if it's set for notification. I also have this little device here called a cell phone, an iPhone, and guess what I also do? I check that throughout the day. So I am guessing that I am probably at the least 20 times a day email checker. How many times a day do you check your email? If you were guessing, answer of the day, Scott says I check it once a day after I am home from work. That's it. That's a man that doesn't rely on email for his work, because my work is about email. whether it's scheduling guests for the show, producer Chad and I sending curse words back to each other, or whatever we're doing, I have to check the email throughout the course of the day. So anyway, interesting question. How many of you check your email just once a day? And if you do check your email just once a day, what do you do for a living? Because most of us can't get by with just checking it once a day, because email is the way of the communication. Linda says she checks hers about 3 times a day. Now, it's hard to say I check it just 3 times a day. I'm guessing also, if you only check it 3 times a day, there's a question there. How many of you actually get your emails on your phone? That's a big question, because if you don't get your emails on the phone and you have to go sit at your desktop or laptop to check your emails, that would minimize how many times you check it. But if you're checking your emails on your phone, it would be hard to say you can only check it once a day or 3 times a day. But anyway, love to hear from you. How many times a day do you check your email? And I'd like you to take a guess. Everybody in the rooms, take a guess, put it up on the screen. And then today, I want you to count how many times you check your email. I want you to count how many times you check your email. Now, I have several email boxes that I'm responsible for, and I have some that I'm just copied on, and I just kind of see what happens out there. And but I check them all at one time. I just go through all the windows and say, okay, 3 unread, 48 unread, 2007, not going to get to those unread, and I just move around. But yeah, how many times do you check your emails? Scott says he fixes cars, so not much email involved with that. See, that makes sense. That's what I say. If you have a job where you're not email reliant, I would probably check a lot less. Dave says once every 2 to 3 days when I get home, I go through all my voicemails and text messages, and that's where all my work comes in as a handyman. So if you need Dave as a handyman very quickly, you're going to have to wait 2 to 3 days for a response. Hey, Dave, I need a handyman. The whole place is blowing up. Come fix it. I'll check it every 2 to 3 days. Just messing with you, Dave. I don't blame you. Check it as little as possible. Jim says, I check it 2 to 3 times an hour, so maybe over 30 times. I wouldn't say check it 2 or 3 times an hour all the time, but I have my phone with me at all times, and I will hear it ping, or I'll hear it ding, or feel it vibrate. Linda says it's only on the phone. Nothing is work-related. So Linda's checking her email for fun. Therefore, she checks it about 3 times a day, only on the phone. Anyway, answer the question for us. We'd love to hear from you. How often do you check your email? Love to get your response on that. And again, 88% of working adults say they check their email at least once a day. Dave's an exception. He's not in that 88%. He checks it every 2 to 3 days. But 1 in 5 people say they check it at least 20 times a day. And so how many times a day do you check your email? I'm going to go with the 20 plus checking of the email is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to count myself, if I remember, throughout the course of the day of how many times I'm actually checking my email. Now, because of the count that I'm putting myself under, I've held my phone up 2 or 3 times, and there's been an instinct that I thought I should open the mail app while I'm on the air and read it. And sometimes I've done that on the program, but I'm not going to check the email today. Not going to check it. But here's the problem on the computer right here. That is before me, it will pop up with a notification. And so during the show, I'm still getting notifications about emails. That's not me checking it. That's telling me to check it, and I haven't checked them. So I'm just throwing that out there. How many times a day do you check the email? Love to get your thoughts on that. All right. There's another story about Joe Biden besides his sickness and his diagnosis of cancer that I think is going to be something interesting for all of us to watch. And this is an email in which it's now being investigated by the House Oversight Committee that who was signing the auto pen for Joe Biden. Representative James Comer says staffers behind the auto pen have been identified, and they're going to be subpoenaed to give a testimony before the House Oversight Committee as to who was controlling the auto pen. And if they choose not to honor the subpoena, they will get a full-blown deposition as to what their behaviors were in the White House. This is from the Gateway Pundit. The auto pen scandal has now erupted into a full-blown constitutional crisis. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer revealed in a bombshell interview with Jason Chaffetz, who was filling in, I believe, for Sean Hannity on the Fox News channel, that his committee has identified the shadowy White House staffers responsible for wielding the president's infamous auto pen during a period when Biden was clearly in mental decline. Now, again, a great time for a diagnosis for Joe Biden, taking the headline story over to his cancer diagnosis, and may he recover speedily. But there's a lot of bombshells coming out about the Biden administration, and this week is when the investigation has been made public about his auto pen. The auto pen scandal, according to the Gateway Pundit, first erupted in March when President Trump, in a fiery late-night Truth Social post, declared Joe Biden's pardons as void, vacant, and no further force or effect. Trump revealed that Biden, whom he's branded as the worst president in the history of our country, did not personally sign the pardons, nor was he even aware of them. Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything of them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by President Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. By April, President Trump escalated his calls for accountability, and that's what's about to happen. So on Saturday, Trump reacted to the newly released audio of the Robert Hur interview in 2023 and said this was a major part of the real crime, that Joe Biden was not able to function in the Oval Office, but someone was signing the documents. And so the auto pen is about to be investigated by James Comer and the House Oversight Committee. Let me play. This is him on with Jason Chaffetz filling in for Sean Hannity. James Comer talking about the auto pen investigation, and they said they're going to get deep to the bottom of this thing and find out who it was that was signing these documents. And I think Joe's done one or two interviews since. Did any of the old cackling battle axes on The View or has anybody asked Joe about those pardons or the auto pen? I don't think they do. I don't think they've asked Joe about these very important topics of auto pens and his behavior as president, his cognitive ability. This is it, though. This is the audio. James Comer on Fox News just this weekend talking about there's going to be an investigation as to who was signing the papers that Joe Biden was not cognitively able to sign.
Going and looking at who is controlling this auto pen, because Joe Biden, I mean, he's demonstrating that he doesn't have all the cognitive capabilities they had. That interview was from 2023.
Yeah, that's hard evidence. Early in the President Biden's term as president, it clearly shows that he was in significant mental decline. It questions who was actually making the decisions. So what we found is not just with the pardons he issued, but many of the executive orders that the courts are now using to Trump-proof, many of the executive orders that President Trump is trying to implement to make government more efficient, many of these executive orders, as well as the pardons of Biden's entire family as a result of our investigation, these were all signed with the auto pen. And clearly from that interview, which was many, many months prior to the heavy use of the auto pen, Joe Biden wasn't capable of making decisions. He wasn't coherent. We think we've identified who the staffers are. Jason, you all have done great work with that over at Heritage Oversight. We're going to bring everyone that we believe was involved in any role in the use of the auto pen. We're going to invite them to come in for a transcribed interview. If they want, then they will receive a subpoena and they will have a full-blown deposition. But we want to find out who was actually making the decisions in the White House during the last 9 months of the Biden administration when he was clearly in mental decline.
Somehow the video disappeared on that. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but here we are. And he's clearly in mental decline. Someone was signing the paperwork. Now, what's going to be interesting is if they do discover this and get into this moment of discovery, is it possible you thought it was extreme back in March or April when President Trump late night said, hey, this auto pen signature is void and vacant. He wasn't even aware he signed it. Does that void some of these executive orders by Joe Biden, including the pardons of Joe Biden? That's what's going to be very, very interesting to play out. It's a long shot, but it is worth a pursuit. And I look forward to the conversation. And someone suggested that maybe, remember how they had the dog and pony show on primetime television? This January, the 6 cases in which Nancy Pelosi hired a television producer to stage this big hearing. I'm not saying you got to hire a television producer, but I think this would be a topic that I think America would be very interested in to find out who was pushing the auto pen for Joe Biden, get them under oath, get them under subpoena, and swear them in and find out exactly who was running the White House and who was instructing them who is instructing them to sign these things and create these pardons. So anyway, watch it. James Comer is on the search, my friends. James Comer is on the search and going to get to the underbelly of the swamp that thinks they control Washington, D.C., and you don't have to even have a cognitively able president as long as the swamp has access to the auto pen. That's kind of how the left thinks. Here's another story that's out there. James Comey, I guess, got his butt hauled in, or he voluntarily showed up at the Secret Service office. I think Saturday morning is when he got there for his 8647 Instagram tweet that has now been famous. The Secret Service is now investigating Comey. A lot of the speculation that I'm hearing, and we'll have John O'Connor on, attorney and prosecutor extraordinaire. He'll be on the show a little bit later in the week. But a lot of people say there's probably, unless you find a smoking gun that he had was conspiring to really have an assassination plot, they're going to dub this as free speech. They're going to say it's irresponsible. He's already apologized. I didn't hear a lot of folks say that the crime had been committed, because the word death or killing was not. He could plead, I just didn't know. I thought it meant remove him from office. I thought it was an impeachment cry. I don't know what the question to that is. But here's an interview that I found interesting, that when the Secret Service hauled James Comey in to question him about that, and they're also going to question his wife. Also, his wife will be Secret Service investigation and interrogated. The FBI is not involved yet, but they're saying that if the FBI says, in Kash Patel, and I heard Bongino and Kash Patel do an interview, that if they are required or asked by the Secret Service to jump in, they have jurisdiction. They will jump in only with the request of the Secret Service. Secret Service has the head of the investigation right now. The interesting part of this whole thing is that the FBI is an organization that Kash Patel just took over, and I think many of us speculate and figure that it hasn't yet been cleaned out yet. This is an interview that happened on Fox News, I think Friday night, with Laura Ingraham, and this is a former big-time FBI Secret Service guy, leader, and he says, hey, if you're going to investigate Comey, you better be careful. There is still a lot of rot inside the FBI. There's still a lot of rot inside the Secret Service. A lot of nasty stuff still there. And you're going to have to really clean house if you're going to have a proper investigation. Watch this interview with a former employee of these aforementioned alphabet soup agencies. And he says this James Comey investigation probably can't be taken as seriously as you think, because James Comey infiltrated that FBI and the justice system with a lot of rot, is what he calls it. And he says it's rot, and we're going to have to get that cleaned out. So here's a warning from someone that has been in the agency of law enforcement for the federal government, saying the rot is still there, and that Comey investigation is not going to go very far if you haven't gotten rid of the rot. This is the Laura Ingraham Show, Friday night.
Richard, I got to go back to what you said, though. That the FBI and the Secret Service still is filled with a lot of rot, because the goal of this administration is to clear out the rot. They want to clear out the rot. They want to make it more efficient, make things more seamless and transparent where possible for the American public. And I know they have dedicated people who want to do this. So your message to them tonight, after this obvious threat against the president's life.
Yeah. The obvious threat to the president's life, they've got to get rid of the senior leadership and management at the FBI and the Secret Service. You know, I don't care if they fire them all and they threaten to sue. You know what? That's why we've got the Department of Justice and we've got Pam Bondi. Let her and her people handle that, but you've got to get these people out of here. There are plenty of people at the lower levels at both of those agencies that are dedicated, that are capable, and that will do the job. Put them in those leadership positions. This has got to stop, and it won't if those people are allowed to stay there.
When we hear that the Secret Service is aware of this, and we don't know, have they actually launched an investigation? You're saying that won't come to fruition in any meaningful way given the current makeup? Is that what you're saying?
I doubt it will. Who are they going to send out there to do this investigation? And what investigation are they going to do? When I was at the Secret Service, if you were a construction worker and you were overheard saying something about the president, regardless of who it was, at least 2 agents were going to pay you a visit, put a report together, and let's see what this is all about. Let's see what happens now. Right? This was clearly, this guy needs to be interviewed, and let's see if they're going to release that to the public.
That was, I think, Friday night on the Laura Ingraham Show. Former Secret Service agent James Starpoli, and he says nothing's going to happen to this James Comey investigation unless you've gotten rid of the rot that's in the FBI. Another interesting interview I saw over the weekend, and I forgot what show it was on. I just saw some excerpts. Well, I saw the interview, but I don't know what show it was on. Might have been Sunday Morning Fox, or I don't know. I don't know, some show that happened over the weekend that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel both sat side by side and did an interview. And not only were they asking about the James Comey investigation, and they said they have not gotten involved as the FBI yet because the Secret Service has not asked them to. It's under full investigation by the Secret Service. But they also asked about the assassination attempts on Donald Trump. And it was very interesting response. I believe Bongino kind of took the lead on it and said, listen, we've looked at it very personally. Kash and I are looking into this. And if there was anything nefarious, we would make it public. He said, I know the public wants to think there's nefarious, but right now there's open investigations, but we have found nothing that would we should be alarmed about. So they're saying that these assassination attempts, so far, they haven't uncovered any kind of a conspiracy with outside foreign agencies. But there's still a lot of mystery behind it, especially that July assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, that came within a millimeter of taking the president's life for a live execution. So it was an interesting interview with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino talking about not just the investigation of James Comey as an assassination threat to the president, but also the previous assassination attempts on Donald Trump's life. And Bongino tried to convey to everybody that he has no evidence that there's any conspiracy that happened in those assassination attempts yet of President Trump. He said he and Kash have looked at it. They've been diving into it, and they haven't found anything that they need to report yet. So fascinating indeed. All right, this past Saturday night, producer Chad and I were in the same location. We were at the Casino Gala, hosted by and sponsored by and a benefit of Rivers Promise. It was you've been hearing me talk about it for a couple of months at the Rivers Promise Casino event. I was at the Omni Interlaken Hotel and Resort, and we had a fantastic time there. I think we got a photo popping up here, populating. There's producer Chad and I on the red carpet, smiling for the photos there. There's the glorious producer Chad. Ladies, settle down. Just because producer Chad has shown himself on the screen does not give you permission to stumble in your walk with the Lord. What that means, ladies, is you must now immediately, as the Apostle Paul said in his writings in the Bible, he said you should bring your thoughts into captivity. So all of those thoughts that you're looking there for Cowboy Chad, you need to, that's his dancing name, by the way, producer Chad on the radio. But when he's out dancing, earning those dollar bills at the hotel rooms for the business travelers, when producer Chad, I almost had a straight face the entire time I said that. When he's out earning those glittery dollar bills, my friends, we call him Cowboy Chad because he wears the chaps. And somebody said, are they assless chaps? Well, all chaps are assless. Just think about that. That's kind of a redundancy, assless chaps. But he wears them pantless, and it's awkward. That's why producer Chad and I have separate studios all to ourselves, because when he shows up in his chaps that are by default assless, and then he has no pants on, it's really uncomfortable. I mean, even for Delilah, it's very uncomfortable. It's not good. It is not good. So anyway, that was us at the Casino Gala. And yes, he did have his pants on, and he did not have chaps on that night, at least that I know of. When he got home, what he does in his own house is not my business. But at the Omni, he had no chaps and he had pants. It was a big deal. It was a pretty big deal there. It was a fun time. By the way, if you did, look at that one. That's myself and my son. That's River, named after River's Promise at the Casino Gala. That's a great photo. We are both enjoying a cigar. Yes, I have raised my son correctly to know what a fine cigar tastes like. And that's my son all dressed up, myself all looking handsome as well. Now that right there, when you got the Lakey men on the screen, it's glorious. I know. Ladies, turn thy head away because you went to church yesterday and you don't want to undo all the things the good Lord did in your life yesterday. So don't look at the screen right now. Scott jumps in and says Chad has chaps for the radio. What he's wearing in his own studio right now, I don't know. That's one of the reasons in radio I've kept people through the glass, and very rarely are people allowed in my studio with me. Because radio people are weird, and television people can be weirder, and producer Chad sometimes lets it all hang out. That's all we can say. Chaps for the radio, or chops for the radio. Anyway, he's got them. I know some of you are listening on the streamcast right now, the podcast later, and you're like, doggone it, I'd love to see those photos. We'll put some up at the facebook.com/Rivers Promise page. We'll put them on the facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page as well. We'll get some of those photos posted up there, and you can see all that you missed at the Casino Gala. Now, real quick, I do want to remind you that if you missed the Casino Gala, we inched towards, and I say inch towards, we didn't take leaps, but we are inching towards a very big goal for the rest of the month. And we want to donate or raise about $50,000. And the reason that's such an important number is that will pretty much help fund our operational expense of Legacy Christian Academy and our operational expense in Rwanda for the next through the end of the year. Well, our goal is to raise $50,000. We did not raise $50,000 on casino night, but that's why I've been saying for weeks now that it's not just casino night, but the days and weeks leading around and to and through casino night. We want to raise $50,000 because $50,000 will help us complete our operational budget for the next 6.5 months of operation for 2025. So when you donate, again, maybe you say $50,000, I can't even do $5. We'll do 50 cents. No, if you can't, I understand. I really, truly understand that some people are still living in the Joe Biden economy. I get that. But if you can help us out, every penny helps us get towards that $50,000 goal. So if you can give $50 today, if you can give $5 today, if you can give $500, some of you under the sound of my dulcet tones could give $5,000, which would be 10% of our $50,000 goal. You can help us if you have not donated in and around the Casino Gala. Just put Gala in your comment when you make a donation, and we will count it towards that $50,000 goal. And again, we did not hit it on Saturday. We were not necessarily going in with the expectation that we would. But if you can help us, again, $30, do the math, times 10. That's 10 kids, 2 meals a day for 30 days. It helps us build our Legacy Christian Academy Operation Fund. And if we raise the 50, that gets us the rest of the year to start focusing on what we call CapEx, as we have a matching grant for almost half of our next phase of construction that's sitting there, but we can't necessarily go fully fundraise on that until I get the operational stuff covered, because I can raise the money for all the buildings in the world, but if I can't feed the kids or pay for their education, buildings will stay empty. So if you can help us, riverspromise.org, it is tax deductible, and I appreciate you helping out. I know several of you have done that. More of you should. If you're listening on the podcast, would love to have you participate there. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com. And if you missed the Casino Gala on Saturday night in Colorado, it was a glorious night, and we're sorry you missed it. It was fantastical. Indeed, it was. All right, good to have all of you here. It's a Monday morning edition of the program. And if you're watching us live, great to have you watching live all across the fruited plain of America. And also great to have many of you listening later in the day. As soon as this show's done, it will show up, and it will be a podcast. It'll be on the Apple Podcast, the Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, the iHeart app. It will be on all these. And so even if you're watching this live, would you do us a favor and go to your favorite Podbean or wherever you listen to podcasts and just like and subscribe Jimmy Lakey Unleashed. And as soon as this show is done, it will populate as a podcast. Right now, it's a live stream, obviously. It'll populate as a podcast. So if you ever miss it, you know where to find it. But it helps us build those numbers up to like and subscribe to the Jimmy Lakey Unleashed podcast channel on all of your favorite podcast platforms. We do appreciate it. We've been on podcast format now for just a couple of weeks on this show, and I'm not the expert. Producer Chad is. And he says we are kicking arse and taking names when it comes to subscriptions out there. So everybody like, subscribe, and listen to it, share it, and even if you're watching on the live stream, that's a great backup, kind of a safety parachute. If you ever get disconnected in the morning, you can go back and listen to it audio only on the podcast. But help us out. We appreciate you when you do that. All right. I want to bring into the program our great guest of the morning is Dr. Carol Lieberman. She's known as America's psychiatrist. And originally I had her on just to kind of talk about the narcissism. And that's my diagnosis. I'm not sure. She has not examined James Comey, but the behaviors of James Comey, but with this medical diagnosis of Joe Biden with very aggressive prostate cancer. As a medical doctor, she's going to jump in on that as well. So please, ladies and gentlemen, unless you're driving, a warm round of applause. Dr. Carol Lieberman, America's psychiatrist, on the screen. Hello, Dr. Lieberman. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, let's start with James Comey. I do want to get to Joe Biden. What a narcissist. That's my diagnosis, and I don't know what the clinical definition of a narcissist is. But when you see a guy that's really smart, he knows the law, he's been the FBI director, put out a stupid Instagram post about what I would interpret kill or remove or eliminate the president. This guy's not all there in the head. Is that narcissism getting in the way of common sense? Give me your thoughts as a psychiatrist watching what James Comey's done the last couple of days.
Well, first of all, he has a long-term case of Trump derangement syndrome. When you think back about how he treated Hillary's emails, about how he treated Russiagate, I mean, this really isn't new. It's just sort of the extreme. I mean, now he's lost common sense altogether because he's trying to pretend that he was just going for a nice walk on the beach. And lo and behold, what did he find? He found these seashells arranged in the numbers 8647.
Miracle.
Yes. Now, as the head of the FBI, ex-head, you would think that he would know that 86, that's cop code for kill, for murder. So he's saying murder Trump. And he thinks that people are just going to think this is funny. And what a coincidence. Huh, look what he found. And he really should get into a lot of trouble. I know he's being investigated, but they shouldn't just, they should do a very deep dive investigation because, okay, let's say he wasn't planning on killing Trump, but his Instagram could motivate. There are a lot of people out there who, are mentally unbalanced, and it could certainly influence somebody to 8647.
You have a podcast and you followed since 9/11 the terrorism that's a threat to our country through open border, and we saw it happen 9/11 a long time ago. But terrorism is a real deal, and I'm guessing if there's anybody out there that is maybe with ties to other countries or anybody else out there would probably have been perp walked already for putting out 8647. That would be considered a threat to the president. Is James Comey possibly going to get a pass because he's James Comey?
Well, it could well happen. I certainly hope not. But yes, he has a lot of friends. That would be very sad because, we know of two assassination attempts on Trump. We know of two, but there are others that we don't know of. I mean, for example, this we know of, but the teenager in Wisconsin who killed his parents in order to get their life insurance money and the freedom to be able to go and assassinate Trump. Now, here's just this teenage kid, living in Wisconsin, and he killed his parents, so that he could assassinate Trump. I mean, there are lots of people, and certainly, of course, foreign terrorists and all that, and Comey did this while Trump was in the Middle East, of all places, where he's more at risk even there than in America. So this was really dangerous.
And we do know that there's Iranian hit squads. We found out right around the election time that the Iranians have hit squads that have been deployed around the globe to try to 8647, as James Comey would like to say. I hope he's charged. You mentioned last time we were together that you have submitted to, I believe, the American Journal for Psychology or some journal or formal, I guess, submission that Trump derangement syndrome should be a psychological diagnosis. Talk about that Trump derangement syndrome, because it's not just fodder for talk show hosts. This is real stuff.
Yes. This actually started in his first term, but and then it kind of went a little underground when he wasn't president, but it has blossomed, much greater than before. And I keep putting finishing touches on it, but the problem is, and then some new case of TDS comes about, like James Comey. I was just about ready to submit it. I'm submitting it to the American Psychiatric Association for inclusion in the book that they put out of diagnoses called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. And just when I'm about ready to do that, something else happens that, absolutely needs to be included. And I have three, I'm not sure if I mentioned these details, but I have three different classifications of TDS. There's mild, moderate, and severe. So of course I had to put Comey in the severe case.
It's really fascinating. I use the phrase narcissism because it sounds, some people are saying that James Comey, first of all, I guess he's releasing a book this week. Was this part of some book tour publicity stunt? Is it that he kind of feels irrelevant? All these people are getting to be Trump deranged and he's not in the spotlight. Is this possibly just him desperately looking to be relevant once again? And is that by definition narcissism?
Well, I do think, I do think that he is probably narcissistic because one of the things, yes, he disregarded Hillary's emails before Trump fired him. But when Trump fired him, that was a narcissistic blow. That was a narcissistic wound that he has never healed. And so he has just become worse and worse. And yes, as you mentioned, he's having a book come out. And this is great publicity. All of a sudden now he's in the news again. Whereas if the book came out and he hadn't done this, it would be like, who's James Comey again?
Yeah.
Who is that guy?
It is fascinating, and we'll see how it all plays out. I hope he doesn't get special treatment. If you or I had put something at 86-46, we would be in trouble, Carol Lieberman. Dr. Lieberman, they'd be after us. There'd be a knock at the door right now, the studio, and we'll find out what happens with Comey. I thought it was interesting. They're also, I guess, interviewing his wife. Which tells me, hey, we're going to get, I wouldn't be surprised if they kept their phones, looked through. Is there any evidence that this was not an innocent stroll by the beach? Usually you take several photos with was this the only photo on there? I think there's a lot of questions that just taking his telephone might tell about this a moment that he says it was just an average stroll on the seashore where he found the seashells.
Right. And, it would be interesting if they found something even more damning, on his phones or on his computer, and his stupid, idea of with his what he thought would be a clever idea of the 86-47 is really, not that that's not enough to put him in jail. Yeah. But then if they find something else because they're doing this investigation, he would really be in even worse trouble.
The voice of Dr. Carol Lieberman, if you're listening on the podcast version of the show, audio only, Dr. Carol Lieberman, America's psychiatrist. We'll give you your websites here in just a moment. You can listen to her podcast. Dr. Lieberman, let's switch gears. You're a psychiatrist, but you're a medical doctor with that. And with that medical doctor training, obviously, any kind of diagnosis probably catches your attention. We find out over the weekend that Joe Biden has been diagnosed with a very aggressive form of prostate cancer. It evidently has potential or is metastasizing into his bones. Give me your thoughts on this diagnosis that was announced over the weekend, and then I'll have some follow-up questions for you.
Well, of course, it's sad when anybody gets diagnosed with cancer. It's metastasized to his bones. And one of my first thoughts was perhaps it's metastasized to his brain, and that has contributed to some of his cognitive problems. They haven't, reported that yet. But it's really kind of shocking because prostate cancer usually is slow growing. And in men over 50, taking a blood test of PSA, that measures the prostate activity. If after 50 is the most dangerous time, when men get to be over 50. So that should be part of any annual exam, part of the blood test that you test for that. So how is it that in the last, within the past year when he had an annual exam, how is it that it didn't show up? So the question is, that it didn't show that it was a little too high. Now, it can grow, cancer can grow at all different rates, but it probably should have shown something. So how did this happen? Well, possibly, we know that we don't really know. We don't get to know the results of his annual exams, that they hide things. So it's possible that this did show up and they didn't want to tell the public because then people wouldn't have voted for him, while he was still running, because they would think, oh, well, he's going to die soon. So, let's not vote for him. That's one possibility. Another possibility is his doctor, Dr. O'Connor. I have never been impressed with Dr. O'Connor from the very beginning. He reminds me of Doogie Howser. First of all, Doogie Howser, that television show of a super young doctor who still is smart and he still gets to be a resident and all that. Well, I don't think he's that smart, but he does remind me of Doogie Howser. So it's possible that he totally screwed up and either didn't do the PSA test or didn't do an examination of Biden. Maybe Biden didn't want him to examine his prostate. But of course, that's still malpractice. I mean, so if it's Biden's fault for saying not to do these things, that's one thing. But if he just screwed up, then it's malpractice.
Again, the voice of Dr. Carol Lieberman. It's fascinating to me. And again, I sincerely wish the Bidens well. Cancer, you can be political enemies, but on a human standpoint, it's tough for anybody to get a cancer diagnosis. The Biden family, as well as corrupt as they might have been, you still just have to say, like President Trump did, you tweet out and say best wishes, and we wish you a speedy recovery, because cancer is a very evil and nasty thing. That said, you mentioned that maybe this could have been diagnosed earlier or picked up earlier. Conspiracy world, I'm going to jump on the grassy knoll here, Dr. Lieberman, is that this is really good timing to announce whatever you have known. Last week, you had the return tour on The View that did not go well. Democrats were like, please go back to hiding. You have Democrats piling on everywhere that the guy was mentally in decline. He should have stepped down from the race earlier. You have the Jake Tapper book coming out this week. You have the special counsel, her audio that got released on Friday. There's a lot of stuff about Joe Biden and his ability cognitively in his presidency. There's an announcement this weekend that there's going to be an investigation of who was controlling the auto pen and signing things that he wasn't aware of. There's a lot of negative stuff coming about in his administration. Grassy knoll of conspiracy, but it's really good timing. If you're going to have a cancer diagnosis, it's good to have one that will erase all the negative headlines.
Yes, that is true. There's a lot. It boggles my mind, though, why Biden is making all of these appearances. I mean, his mental capacity has not gotten any better. So why not just go and enjoy a retirement instead of showing everybody just how non-compos mentis you are? So, and I'm sure I've mentioned before about how I was talking to people when he was running from his basement. I did a ton of interviews trying to warn people that he has what I called encroaching dementia. And it has encroached, throughout his presidency. So Joe, just go retire, sit out on the beach or somewhere, go find stones that say,
go on a seashell hunt with James Comey. You and James Comey can hold hands and look for seashells by the seashore. It'd be fantastic. What is this? I know right before the election, you were on a radio show at the time, and in election season, you actually tried to get Dr. Jill Biden investigated for elder abuse. And what does this tell you that why does he keep showing up out there? I don't think he's planning it on his own. Like even on The View last week, Dr. Jill jumped into the rescue and started answering questions for him. This is, Joe's cognitively, he's gone. He's just not there. somebody's got to be driving this media appearance. Is it Jill? Is this elder abuse still in practice? That she's not saying, Joe, let me hold your hand. We're going to go look for seashells by the seashore with James Comey, but you're not doing television. Is this Jill that is pushing this out there?
Well, it could well be, because talk about wanting to still seem relevant. She doesn't want to give up the spotlight, and she doesn't want to give up being invited to things and, being considered royalty and all of that. So it could well be, but I mean, it's so cruel to do that. And another question is, how come she didn't notice any of his symptoms of the prostate cancer? Like, for example, typically, one of the symptoms, most obvious symptoms, is that you have to start going to the bathroom to urinate a lot, and like especially during the night and all that. And now, unless they're not sleeping in the same room, but and she didn't notice him having any pain. I mean, it just kind of begs that question: how is it that your spouse doesn't have a clue about these things?
Yeah. It is good timing. That's all I can say. And again, we wish him well. And I mean that sincerely. This is not unlike the American left that would be wishing a horrible, painful death for their political opponent. I don't wish that at all for Joe Biden. But it is good timing. I mean, somebody's looking out for him to give him a little publicity break, because it has not been good publicity the last couple of weeks. And so I guess he's going to get to change the headline a little bit, Dr. Lieberman.
Yes, and what's really sad, and of course I wish him well, but what's really sad is that if he would have acknowledged that he was kind of having mental problems, cognitive problems, that he was not competent. I mean, that was what I've been saying, how he's not competent to be president. But anyhow, if he would have acknowledged that and retired earlier, then they probably would have discovered this earlier, and he would have been, have a better prognosis, a longer prognosis. And so it's really sad, for his health that he didn't do that.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, known as America's Psychiatrist. Dr. Lieberman, I want you to plug your podcast, your websites, and the books and all the great stuff that you have, how folks can access you this. But I'm watching this, James Comey. You focused for years on international terrorism, radical Islamic crazies that destroyed the World Trade Centers back in the year 2000. All of the craziness has happened in the world of international terror. Do you kind of watch the news sometimes to go and realize why our founders said we have to be careful about enemies, foreign and domestic, when you see guys like James Comey walking the beach? I mean, you focus on international foreign terrorism, but you kind of look at some of these Trump derangement people, and we have some potential domestic terrorists going on.
Absolutely. I mean, they absolutely should be called that, domestic terrorists. Well, I'll mention, you just made me think of this. I do a podcast called The Terrorist Therapist Show, because I call myself the terrorist therapist. And I just did one that I'm about to release called Allah versus the Art of the Deal, in relation to Trump's trip to the Middle East. And that can be found where you find podcasts, also on my website, terroristtherapist.com.
Terroristtherapist.com. And the new podcast will, they can link it. We tell people on our podcast, the same as yours, like it and subscribe to it. We don't ever know, as a podcaster, you never know when people listen to it. We don't get those counts in podcasting, but we know when to like and subscribe. So if you want to support Dr. Lieberman, you got to like it and subscribe it, and then be on your merry way.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Lieberman, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for hopping on the program here. The website, terroristtherapist.com, that's the one to find the podcast and all things Dr. Lieberman.
Yes, that's my primary one. And it has music videos that I created about 9/11 and 10/7 and all kinds of good stuff.
Terrorist therapist, Dr. Carol Lieberman, America's psychiatrist, talking about Joe Biden, talking his medical diagnosis, and also the narcissism and the crazy TDS affected James Comey. Dr. Lieberman, thanks for hopping on the program this morning. I do appreciate you getting there, getting up and being on the program. All right, what else do I have? We've got several news stories I haven't gotten to this morning. We'll continue to follow up this week and see if anything else happens in that James Comey investigation. we do want to remind you that this former Secret Service guy that we just played the audio for video from says, be careful. These investigations are never going to go anywhere if you don't get rid of the rot that is inside of the FBI. It's going to be interesting to see what happens the next couple of days. And I mean that when I asked Dr. Lieberman that question. You know, for years, those of us who grew around and came into, I guess, adulthood and really paying attention to voting and policies after the days of September the 11th, how many times we've been focused on international terrorism, but you haven't been focused on the enemies that are domestic. We've only focused on the foreign enemies. And I think you got to be very careful out there because what do we say about the left? What they accuse you of is what they're usually guilty of. And we've seen that throughout time. And what do they say? Donald Trump's a threat to democracy? Well, I think you could see some of the policies that happened under the Joe Biden administration has happened even when previous administrations that they're the ones that seem to disregard our founding documents and the democracy that we live in. So they always accuse you of what they're guilty of. And enemies, foreign and domestic, is what we're paying attention to now. Dr. Carol Lieberman, terrorist therapist. All right, we'll continue to follow that story. I'm going to follow up a little bit more on the investigation into the auto pen. Who was signing the paperwork in the White House that Joe Biden evidently had no clue on? All right, one more quick roundup of our question of the day before we go to the stolen meme section of the show. The question of the day: 1 in 5 workers say they check their email at least 20 times a day. 88% of working adults say they check their email at least once a day, even on vacation. 1 in 5 have said they check at least 20 times a day. If you start your week by cleaning out your inbox, you're not alone. A lot of folks say Monday's a good day to clean out your inbox. I sometimes will do that on a Friday or over the weekend. I'll just kind of go through all the stuff that I haven't gotten to. And I also have to go through these unsubscribes. Sometimes you get subscribed to so many emails lists that you don't even know how you get on them. And that's always frustrating. New poll shows that 93% of us check our email at least every day. 88% check it on vacation. Only 6% don't check their email every day. So a lot of you have been sounding off about when you check your email. Our Lois says, yeah, she sees her email on her phone, but she doesn't actively check it unless she's looking for something. Otherwise, she checks it later on her computer. You are very disciplined, Arloa. If it shows up on my phone, I'm probably going to read that darn thing. I was up early this morning on a little business venture I'm working on and got an email that I thought was very important, that I thought a deal might have been dead, but I think we have maybe resurrected it. And so I checked that early this morning. I saw it on my phone as I was getting ready this morning, and then I came down to my computer in the studio, and I said, that's fascinating. Good news. All right, good to have all of you here on the program. Don't forget, I want to remind you about Sherry Cree. Sherry was with us on Saturday night. What a great time we had. As a matter of fact, I think she sent me the photos. We got a couple of selfies together. Listen, if you missed the gala, you missed it, and you could have met Sherry Cree in person. She and her husband had sponsored an entire table of great guests. They had 8 VIPs with them at the table, sponsored by the Crees and homeswithsherry.com. And I just got to remind you, my friends, go back and listen to the show last Friday. Sherry was on the program with us, and we talked about a couple of things. We talked about the art of the deal in real estate. We talked about the art of pricing and putting the right price on a home, and just a lot of kind of behind the scenes things that we did that on Friday's show. Go back and listen to the Friday interview with Sherry Cree on the podcast. You can go back and listen to it also on the Streamcast, watch it. And that was on the Friday edition of the program. But listen, if you're thinking about a real estate transaction, thinking about buying, selling, you've been contemplating what's the market look like, you're just trying to feel, is this the best time? Is it the worst time? What are property values? Are they going to continue to skyrocket in the state of Colorado? Listen, you got questions. You've got a decision to make about selling or buying, but you want to have all the information about there regarding the market. Have that conversation with Sherry. She's happy to talk to you, happy to come up with a strategy, and she's not trying to rush you to market or rush you to buy. Just so she can get a closing. That's not her objective at all. Her objective, big term, is 35,000 feet in the air, and she wants to be your realtor for life. In other words, she wants you to say, I bought a house and in 4, 5, 6, 10 years, I want to buy another one or downsize or get a rental property, or my kids now get in the housing market. I want them to, she wants your family, the whole family, to just say, hey, Sherry's our lady. She takes care of us, because she doesn't just put signs in yards and doesn't just do open houses and walk you through. No, she actually looks at your strategy, your strategery, and says, hey, how can we work together to make your real estate dreams come true? She knows, as most of us understand, that real estate can create generational wealth, but you got to play the game right. And Sherry wants to help you do that. And that's just whether you're getting a starter home or whether you're ready to downsize to a ranch in your retirement living, whether you're buying your dream home or you're buying your retirement place you want to retire at. And that wherever you're at in the real estate journey, Sherry wants to walk with you and partner with you. Homeswithsherry.com, Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com, anywhere on that I-25 corridor in Colorado. She would love to be a part of that real estate journey with you. And so if you're in the Denver area, if you're in Aurora, you're in Parker, you're in Broomfield, you're in Boulder. Hello, Fort Collins. How are you doing up there? Loveland. Sherry is going to help you as well. If you're in, you just picked Berthoud. Hey, have you heard from Berthoud this morning? Anybody in the chat room in Berthoud? Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, and be sure to tell her that you heard Jimmy Lakey talking about her on the program. Homeswithsherry.com. No pressure, no obligation. She just wants to have a conversation with you. Homeswithsherry.com. All right, tomorrow we'll put up some more casino gala photos. You saw producer Chad and I earlier. You saw my son and I enjoying fine cigars at the gala. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll put up some more photos tomorrow, and let's just see all those at the Facebook page, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. If you don't follow us on all the platforms, you should. Twitter is just my name, Jimmy Lakey. Rumble, there's my name, but there's also the Lakey Unleashed channel. That's where we go off on the Rumble feed. The YouTube, just look up my name. You'll see the little red, white, and blue House of Lakey logo. You see behind me, should see that as one of the emblems, or a beautiful photo of my face. You should see that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Stolen Meme section of the show. This is where we travel to the globe. We search the globe for memes that we think are funny, and we steal them. And that's what we do here. Ladies and gentlemen, so round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Here's we stole this from Donald J. Trump Jr. They leaked the Biden-her tape. And there's some screaming, oh, release the prostate cancer news. There's your it's not a bad, it's quite fascinating. The interview didn't go well on The View. Now they leaked the Biden-her tape. His interview, release the prostate cancer news. Release the hounds. It's possible. I'm not saying it ain't possible. That's all I'm saying. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. There's a little photo of Donald J. Trump. If you still hate him after seeing the mess he's cleaning up, your ignorance is impressive. That's true. That's true. There's some people I know that have some very impressive levels of ignorance. If you still hate him after seeing all the mess he's cleaning up, short bus for you, and wear a helmet. Ladies and gentlemen, around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one know. This is a beautiful landscape photo of the beach and the ocean, the sun rising or setting, wherever it is. And here's the letters across the screen. I'm painting the picture for those listening on the audio version of the show. Picture a calm beach setting with a great photo. And here's what it says. The fact that Keith Richards and Willie Nelson have outlived Richard Simmons has me rethinking the whole idea of eating right and the exercise. Anybody else think like that? Just saying. I'm not a health advisor, but they are still alive. They are still alive. Round and around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Here's another one. It's just writing only, no picture to describe. The only thing that's gotten worse under Trump's second term is the Democrats' behavior. I say here to that. They've gotten worse and worse and worse. They haven't learned anything. That Trump derangement syndrome that Dr. Carol Lieberman talked about as a psychological diagnosis, it really is a psychological diagnosis. Some of you have, a lot of you've gone from disagreement to just craziness, and you really should seek help. I mean that sincerely. You should seek help. Round and around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. We might have milked the meme machine dry. Yes, we did. Ladies and gentlemen, we have milked the meme machine dry. All right, don't forget, we're still seeking to get that fundraising goal by the end of May. We're trying to get $50,000 raised, and you can donate at riverspromise.org. Also on the website, if you're a check mailer, there's an address on there, and you're welcome to send us a check to the P.O. Box for Rivers Promise. We'd love to hear from you. And again, the gala was just a part of it. Some of you were there. We appreciate you being there. Producer Chad and I were there. But if you haven't donated, if it's $25, man, donate. That's what you can do. That's wonderful. We don't despise small beginnings. I believe that, like the parable of the old widow, she just had a little bit, but God can use amazing things with just a little bit when we do it with the right heart. And so maybe you're not the person that can do the $5,000, but you do the $50. Maybe do the $5. Listen, $30 feeds a kid 2 meals a day for 1 month. $65 feeds the kid, sends them to school, gives them health insurance, provides for their greatest needs on a month-to-month basis. So $65 a month. So if you can do 65, you can do 30, maybe you do 3. I don't know what you can do, but I'm asking you to help us because it's $50,000. One of the other things we have to point out for our organization, I don't take a salary from Rivers Promise. So it's not like I'm getting a monthly check or anything from it. The money goes to the kids. And I appreciate you helping out. Our goal is $50,000. That will carry us through our operational expenses through Four Rivers Promise pretty much through the end of the year. Doesn't mean we won't have needs, but just the day-to-day operations. So $50,000 is our goal. And if you can be a $5 part of that, a $50 part of that, who could be a $500 part of that? We would love to have you help there to be a part of it. So be a part of be a part of the keeping the promise that I made to my son many, many years ago. Riverspromise.org. You can donate today. And again, don't feel bad. If you're a $5 donor, that's great. If you're a $500 donor, that's great. We love all of you, and we just appreciate you partnering with us. $50, $5, $500, $5,000. We'd love to have you. Once we can get past this operational expense that we ongoing been behind the 8 ball on this year. Once we can get past that, then I can spend my goal is to be able to spend the following 6 months of the year raising money for what we call CapEx, because we have a big matching grant sitting there waiting for us to raise money to build the rest of our elementary school or primary school campus K through 6. But we can't start raising that until we can fully fund our operations. So you're helping out. You're helping the kids out there. You really are. If you want to learn more, go to facebook.com/riverspromise. You can see some photos. Of course, if you followed me through the years in radio, you know my many trips to Rwanda. I'm trying to get over there in the next 30 to 45 days. We shall see how that pans out. But help us out, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. I duly appreciate it, and I'm thankful for all of you for giving. And again, if you're a $5 part of it, be a $5 part of it. I think it was, I saw the printout. I think Brother Jeff, who's oftentimes lurking in the chat room, I think I saw he made a $50 donation over the weekend. God bless him. And by the way, I think it was in lieu of the fact, I think it was Jeff or somebody posted up and said, hey, I'm not being charged for the Patreon page. What happened to the Patreon page? Well, we announced about a month and a half ago or so that we were pulling back the paywall. No more paywall. Patreon, we made it dormant, and everything's going out on a podcast right after the show. So don't forget that. If you're looking for the Patreon, all the interviews, we're going to resume some interviews here long term, but they're going to be on the podcast platform, Jimmy Lakey Unleashed, Jimmy Lakey Unleashed. So, hey, that's a great point. If you're missing that podcast subscription that you used to do, donate that to Rivers Promise. I think it's much better spent there than it was on the Patreon page. So anyway, God bless you, my friends. I appreciate you. I have a title today, don't I? So I just saw that on the screen. What was my title? The Mike Dog. Yeah, like the mafia here. The Mike Dog. I always forget to read those. But yeah, you can call me what you want. Just as I said, don't call me late for dinner. Something like that. God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. If you'd like to advertise with us and be a part of the show, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. Until we meet again, I'll say it one more time because you can't say it enough. May God bless you. May God bless America. Jimmy Lakey, peace. I'm out of here.